Now, let's get into it with our guest. She is a real estate marketing expert. Ooh, I love real estate. And the CEO and founder of Listing Lab. Welcome, Jess Lenouvel.
Thank you.
Did I do that right? Jess, I love saying
You
it.
got
Jess
it.
Lenouvel. Beautiful name. How are you?
I'm fantastic. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. It's a Friday morning, and we're about it. Now, people are worried about the real estate industry in big cities because a lot of people are leaving. Metro Flight, of course. And office space in particular is emaciated. So even when we go back to a new normal, it will probably never be the same again. What's your take on the Metro Flight office, people working from home? Are they going to stay working from home? What are your thoughts on that whole thing?
I think that there's a lot of companies out there that have realized how much cheaper they can run. And I think to a certain extent, yes, there are going to be people and companies that keep their workforce as digital as possible. I mean, I know Shopify is one of those companies, but I also think that there's an element of missing working in person that does still exist to a certain extent.
Yes.
So even though there's been so many people that have moved out of the cities, I still think that there's people who are going to somehow move back in slowly. Do I ever think that it's going to be exactly the same? No. But what it actually might do is create more space for some of those bigger cities that have larger influx of like basically immigration for people coming into those cities. There's still going to be a need for buildings and homes and things like that at a larger scale for some of those immigration flows, if that makes sense.
Where are these people coming from? Because, of course, if you have a place like New York, there's always a new wave of New Yorkers that come up here. And the people that moved out, they're probably not coming back. So where are these new people coming from? Or do you think some people are going to come back, the ones that are moving to Texas or Florida?
I think some people are going to come back. I mean, really, like New York's been such a ghost town. And when a little bit of that spice comes back into the streets of New York, I think that there's still going to be people who are going to miss it. You know, I mean, I'm an example of that. I live in Toronto and I miss the city.
Yeah.
I miss having, and Toronto's kind of like mini New York, right?
Yeah.
I miss the city. I miss the spice of it. I miss the noise. I miss the dirt. I think to a certain extent there will be some people who do kind of transfer back in as soon as it's safe. But I also think that, there's a lot of people who are moving, I mean, really New York might not be the perfect example, but we've got a lot of people who are moving into cities in Florida. As an example, right? So I think that there's going to be a rejig in terms of where people actually want to spend their time. But I also think that the needs that people are finding from homes and from housing is also creating a little bit of a shift. Some people who've been living in Manhattan are not going to be happy to go back to living in something so small and so cramped at such a price point.
That's an excellent point. Yes, that's an excellent point.
Yeah, so I think that there's a certain level, there are going to be people who just miss it and who are willing to make the sacrifice. But I also think that there's going to be an influx of people from overseas. And, like immigration is just immigration. People want to live in North America.
That's correct. Now, with all these moving parts, literally and figuratively, people ask me all the time, I'm a real estate guy. People ask me, is now a good time to invest with all these moving parts and to jump into the real estate market? What do you think? Is now a good time?
Yeah, I actually do. As long as, yes, 100%. And I know that there's really low inventory almost across the board, right? And people get worried that those prices are starting to creep up because of the low inventory. There's way more buyers in the market right now than there is property available. But the key here is to understand that, just like you were talking about before, there is a level of appreciation that is going to happen no matter what. The people who buy now versus the people who buy in 3 months, there's actually even going to be such short-term appreciation that we're not used to because inventory is so low.
Right. It's one of those things when people say, oh my God, I missed out. If I don't get this deal right now, the price is going to go up. Well, the price historically continues to go up. So that emotional disconnect, you don't have to worry too much about. But now, as a marketing expert, what kind of tips can you give newbies that want to get in and start building their portfolio and want to start? What would you recommend?
I would say get help. Don't just try to navigate. Yeah, get help. Like, don't just try to navigate all of this yourself. Find someone who actually has some experience whether it's an agent, whether it's a financial advisor, something like that. Just get some help and don't try to just figure it out and navigate it all on your own. My second piece of advice would be the dollars, the numbers, they tell the truth, right?
What do you mean by that?
And what I mean by that is, especially if you're looking for something as an investment and not necessarily for you to live in, there are 3 different pieces that you want to be aware of.
Break them down.
You have your principal pay down,
your down payment.
So the what you're paying down every month as your principal.
The principal pay down. I just wanted to clarify when you said because again, sometimes I have a friend that's an investor in Toronto. Sometimes there's different terminology and it kind of overlaps. Okay, yes. So your principal pay down, basically paying off your mortgage every month. Is that what you're referring to? Okay, yes. All right, go on.
Exactly. So it's the actual principal amount that gets paid down every month. You have your appreciation. And then the third piece is you have rental income. Right? So those are really the 3 places that you can actually make money on a monthly basis when we're talking about any kind of a real estate investment. Now, a lot of people only focus on what is the rental income every month. Now, unfortunately, we live in a world right now where rents don't always coincide with the actual cost of purchasing a property. And people will get super wrapped up in the idea that they're in the hole like $150, $200 a month.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, that actually doesn't matter as long as the principal pay down and the appreciation is there.
Because again, the principal pay down. Let's say you have a property that's $1 million. You have an $800,000 loan, and you're paying that off. Every time you pay that off, the equity increases because the debt is reduced. And then on top of that, equity appreciation is if the value goes up, then it further increases your equity, and you're making money that way, though it's not from cash flow. Is that did I say that correctly?
That's exactly what I'm saying.
Okay.
And so I think that it's super important to understand that it's okay if you're not cash flow positive on a monthly basis, because what you're doing is you're building wealth and you're building equity within that property that in the future you can borrow against, you can borrow from. There's a lot of opportunity from a wealth standpoint to leverage that money, even if you're not cash flow positive on a monthly basis.
Right. You can either refinance it, or you can sell it, or you can take a line of credit, and different things. You have the leverage, and you have the options once you have the assets.
Exactly.
And you have none of the above if you're sitting on the sideline waiting. Is this a good time to actually do it?
And you think about like 10 years ago, I used to have people who would say, I'm going to wait until the bubble bursts. And they're not in a good situation now.
Right. So again, I guess we can summarize here. It's always best to get started because having assets is the place to be. Now, thank you so much for joining us here today.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right. Thank you.